Hello, my name is Matthew Pfeiffer with MattPfeifferCoach.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I create content and videos about toxic, narcissistically abusive relationships. And if you have a question that you'd like for me to answer on this channel, make sure you send it to justaskmatt at MattPfeifferCoach.com. Again, that is justaskmatt at MattPfeifferCoach.com. Just make sure you keep that email 2 to 3 paragraphs max, and that you're also very direct and to the point of what your question actually is. If it's too long, if it's too lengthy, or if I don't understand what you're asking, unfortunately, I will not be able to get to it. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe notification and also hit the bell notification so you're notified each and every time I upload a new video. With that being said, let's get into this email. So this email is from a person who has divorced and is out of a toxic relationship. They've been out of it for quite some time. They took some time to heal, and you're going to hear that in this email. However, they are ready to date again. They're ready to get back out there. And if you have been in this situation where you're dating, even if it's after a non-toxic relationship, it's nerve-wracking, right? When you've been in a relationship for a long period of time, to get back out on the scene, to understand and to begin to set boundaries and to get to know people again and to get to know yourself again. And so let's get into this email and let's break this down for us. So, hi Matt, I've been following you on IG for a while, and I would have to say I love your content. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Just seeking a bit of advice on the below. So I have left a 13-year toxic marriage in 2018. Divorce was final in September of 2021. So if you know anything about divorcing toxic narcissistic people, guess what? It takes quite a bit of time. Not to mention, this obviously was during COVID as well, so I'm sure there was a lot of shutdowns. So good for you for sticking that through, because a lot of people, I know with the courts being shut down, that it takes a lot of courage to be able to stick through that. So I know that was not an easy process. During that time, I took the time to do some healing. Good for you. I picked myself up and learned to love me all over again. In my opinion, the hard part of the healing is done, and the rest is just progress, just working in progress. And so what she's describing is what I tell people is that, yeah, in the beginning, it's a lot of hard work in the beginning when we're talking about the healing process. And quite often people in the beginning will ask me, how long does it take to heal, as if there's an end date. And what I tell them is that the goal is not to heal, right, period, right, not to be healed as though it's like the work is done, but that you fall in love with the journey, because what you find out through the healing process is that the things that you equip yourself to heal are all the things are the way that you should have been living to begin with. And it likely would have avoided the entire toxic relationship to begin with. For example, boundaries, right? We're always supposed to set boundaries. We were always supposed to set boundaries from the time we were young, right? And so the healing process, what you learn through that process is that it's a lifestyle change, right? Just the same way that people who are trainers and that sort of thing talk about dieting, right? Once you get to your goal weight, you can't just get back to your old habits, right? You have to keep up and you have to get into a maintenance phase. So that's what I'm hearing. So good for you. So this email continues. I recently found the courage to start dating again. I started dating a guy in mid-December 2021. I would say we have a great connection. We both really like each other. We did 4 dates so far, speak on the phone, texting, and occasionally FaceTime every day. Ever so often, I'll get a little anxiety/fear, but remember, I'm new to this dating thing. And it's nerve-wracking anyway, right? Getting to know people. And so, yeah, it's very normal and very common to be nervous and have a bit of anxiety at this point. And so she said, remember, I'm new to this thing after being off the market for such a long time. So the dating is like a month in. How much longer should I wait for this guy to claim me or let me know that we are officially exclusive? I really don't want to give it too much time if I know he might not be the one. Thanks in advance. So a handful of things I want to say here. So number one, great job, right? Great job on taking the time to heal. Great job on taking your time in terms of the dating scene and asking these questions, being present with your feelings on the anxiety and the fear. Also, great job on acknowledging, right, that you might be ready to talk about some exclusivity. So one of the things that we want to mention is that I want to mention when we're talking about exclusivity. If it's a concern of yours, talk about it, right? Just because you guys are four dates in, right, doesn't mean that you can't have that conversation on if he's ready, on if he's dating other people, especially if you guys are sleeping together, right? There is nothing wrong with having that conversation. Now, with all that being said, we have to be prepared, and we can't begin to project what we might feel onto this person. And so that person might say that they're not ready, that they are still dating other people. There's a handful of things that they might say. It sounds like he's into you. The other thing that I want to say about this is that where we want to be very careful, especially coming out of a toxic relationship, just because we become exclusive, and this is a conversation between the two of you. So the fact that you're considering it, and the fact that you kind of want to see where things go, and you want to make sure you're not dating other people again, especially if you guys are sleeping together and that sort of thing. It is completely okay for you guys to have the conversation. 4 weeks in, 6 weeks in, but the thing that I want to caution you with, right? Even if and when you guys become exclusive, regardless if we're talking about him or somebody else, take it slow. Quite often, people get into a situation where they become exclusive, and then all of a sudden, they let I don't want to say let their guard down, because relationships do take a level of vulnerability, but we have to understand we're still getting to know this person, right? So we have to make sure that we keep our emotions in check, so to speak, right? And I'm not saying not to go after it. I'm not saying not to get to know him or anything like that. What I am cautioning you on is getting too enmeshed, moving in together, having kids together, engagement, weddings, that sort of thing, right? Major financial decisions, buying cars together, that sort of thing. One of the things that I talk about with people is that we have to also understand, you hear me talking about the cycle of abuse quite often. We don't talk about the cycle of a healthy relationship when people very first start dating. The honeymoon phase has the potential to last anywhere between 6 and 12 months. The honeymoon phase, right? So think about how long that lasts, and that's great, right? That you can have that great of a time. But we have to understand that even in a healthy relationship, there's going to be a drop off, right? So if we're too involved, or if we're too enmeshed too soon, what happens is that has the potential to put too much pressure on a potentially good relationship, and it could, right? Pressure makes diamonds, but it also, guess what? It can also bust pipes. So we have to understand that we need to make sure that we take this time period slow, understanding that we just genuinely doesn't mean that this person is a bad person, doesn't mean that they're a narcissist or anything like that. We just genuinely don't know them very well. And so what happens is that as you guys get to know each other, right, and as the rubber starts to hit the road, I always compare relationships to pets. Everyone wants the nice cuddly little puppy until they realize that the puppy takes shits, that you got to get up at 5 a.m, that there's a responsibility that comes with the puppy, right? It's not just what you saw when you went to go pick it up from the rescue or from the person that you're getting the puppy from. Right? So the beginning phases, and enjoy this, right? I'm not telling you not to enjoy it, but we also want to take our time, because here's what happens after the honeymoon phase, right? Is what's called the doubting phase. And this is when I'm talking about healthy relationships, the doubting phase. And the doubting phase can last anywhere between 12 and 24 months, where you're starting to wonder, is this relationship going to work? Is this truly a really good fit, right? You might start to notice that you guys might have more arguments and more disagreements, right? Not in the unhealthy, doesn't mean that it's unhealthy, right? We have to remember that even healthy relationships have disagreements, and the disagreements actually make the relationship healthy, because it gives both people the opportunity to realize who they are as individuals within that one relationship. So what happens through that process is that both people are kind of trying to find where the compromise is, learning each other, right? And so we have to remember that healthy relationships are built. They are not found, right? So we have to take this, and we have to take this in stride and begin to have these type of discussions like you're talking about exclusivity, the direction of the relationship. What type of relationship do you guys want moving forward? You guys are going to want to talk about like different communication levels. You're going to want to talk more in depth about boundaries. You're going to want to have certain discussions about what it is that you need from each other, not just in the good times, but not if, but when you guys start arguing, when you guys have some disagreements. What does that look like? And start setting some ground rules and some rules of engagement. One person might want space whenever they're pissed off. Right? They might want space. The other person might want to solve everything right then and there. And if you don't have these discussions when there's not an issue, when there is an issue, right? All of a sudden it becomes very combustible, right? Because we're not prepared, right? We want to actually be prepared for these type of discussions before we get into the heat of the moment, especially coming out of a toxic relationship. Here's the reason why. When we don't have these discussions, if we don't have any rules in place, rules of engagement, when the downtimes come, it's going to feel, especially you mentioned anxiety and fear, right? That heart's going to start beating again, right? You might start to have some triggers that you weren't aware of, right? And I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this to prepare you, right? To make sure that we have these discussions with people early, right? Before we get into the heat of things. And it's also important for you as an individual to know your things that are negotiable for you, right? Things that are negotiable, and also your deal breakers, and to start to have these type of discussions as well. Because also, again, in the heat of the moment, when emotions are flaring, right? Things that are negotiable will feel like they're deal breakers, and things that are deal breakers will feel like they're negotiables if you have not processed these things early, right? Great job, everything that I'm hearing, but there's no harm in having this discussion, at this point, but also allow for feedback, right? Allow for feedback, allow for him to say where he's at, and have a discussion and see what you guys can bridge together when it comes to the exclusivity. But everything I'm hearing, it sounds like it's great. So have a great time. Again, take things slow, right? Make sure there's a great book that I would highly recommend for anyone who's looking to get back into the dating scene. If you go down to the link in my bio, I have a whole list of recommended books, but the book is called Boundaries After a Pathological Relationship. So it's a fantastic book for anyone who's coming out of a toxic relationship and getting back into the dating scene to learn how to set boundaries with a new person, right? While make sure that they still respect themselves and that they don't lose themselves in another relationship. So thank you very much. Again, for anyone who would like to write me, make sure you send it to justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. The fastest way to work with me, though, is to go down to the link below. You can join my coaching community. There is a free 7-day trial whenever you join my coaching community. So after that 7 days, if you don't really care for it too much, you can always stop. And with that being said, thank you very much, and I will talk to you in the next video.